My sister stole everything. She took the money, she took my future, and she disappeared without a trace. 30 years of silence. Decades spent building a life from the wreckage she left behind. Then one winter afternoon, a young man, barely 21, walked into my bakery. He was thin, shivering, and said he was her son. He said he was homeless. Wait, Tori stole $385,000. So why was her kid living on the streets? What happened to the money? I knew better than to trust him. Tori, his mother, had destroyed my life. I'd built walls so high they could touch the clouds, meant to keep out exactly this kind of chaos. But there was something about his eyes, the exact green of my father's, that felt like a crack in the foundation. I let him stay. 5 years later, we had built something together. Something whole. Something I thought I'd lost forever. Then she came back. She was sick, she said. Dying. She needed money. She begged for my help. The same woman who stole $385,000, who abandoned her own child to the cold, was now standing in my bakery, asking for mercy. And Ethan, my nephew, the boy who became my son, looked at me like I held the switch to his entire world. Do I save the woman who ruined my life? Do I risk everything I've rebuilt? I made a choice. 3 months later, I got a piece of paper that made me question every single decision I had ever made. My name is Eleanor Vance, and this is my story. Before we continue, please take a moment to leave a comment telling us where you are watching from. It truly helps us connect with our community. And if you believe that the best chapters of life can happen at any age, please subscribe to the Resilience channel. Now back to the story. The trays of golden brown cheddar scones weren't going to move themselves from the oven racks to the cooling table. I bent down, my knees giving a familiar thunk that had become a constant companion these past few years. 65 years old, and I could feel every single one of them in my joints and in my back. It was a slow Tuesday in Ashford, Oregon. The rain was coming down in sheets, a typical November day, and the damp Pacific air kept everyone inside. We'd had maybe 6 customers all morning. The soft yellow lights of the Hearthstone bakery and cafe cast long shadows across the empty maple tables. The ceiling fan blades spun lazily, stirring the scent of sourdough and brewing coffee. I should have replaced that old fan years ago, but that was another expense I kept putting off. I worked nearly 70 hours a week in this place. Every single week. The Hearthstone wasn't fancy, just 1,500 square feet of warm wood, display cases filled with my grandmother's recipes, and a slightly temperamental espresso machine. But it was mine. I built it from nothing. 20 years of saving and scraping, and I finally opened this place when I was 45. That was 20 years ago, and I still felt like I was one bad storm or one slow month away from losing it all. The small bell over the door chimed. I glanced up. A young man stood frozen in the entryway. Maybe 21. He was tall but thin, far too thin. He wore a canvas jacket that was soaked through at the shoulders and looked absolutely inadequate for the November cold. A backpack, its canvas worn and dirty, hung off one shoulder. His hair was long and matted, and he looked like he hadn't slept anywhere warm in a long time. Homeless, probably. We got them sometimes. I kept my expression neutral, wiped my flour-dusted hands on my apron, and went back to organizing the cooling scones. He walked to the back near the beverage bar, stood there, just looking at the menu board. His hand reached out, almost touched a sign advertising our signature apple spice latte, but pulled back instantly. He moved to the case displaying our roast beef sandwiches. Same thing. Looking but not taking. I finished the scones and moved to the glass pastry case. The kid was still just standing there. 5 minutes passed. He picked up one of our flyers advertising daily soup specials, turned it over in his hands like he was reading the history of soup, put it back down. He was working up to something. I'd seen it 100 times. Either he was going to try to steal a muffin, or he was going to ask for money. I straightened up and walked toward the front counter. Ready? He walked toward me slowly. Each step seemed to take genuine effort. Excuse me. His voice was quiet, raspy. Can I help you? Are you Eleanor Vance? My hand stopped moving entirely. Nobody called me by my full name unless they were selling high-priced insurance or serving me legal papers. Who's asking? He swallowed hard. I could see the tremor in his hands. My name is Ethan Heller. Victoria Vance. She's my mother. I think you're my aunt. The floor didn't tilt, but the entire world outside the warm glow of the bakery did. Victoria. I hadn't heard that name, hadn't dared to even think that name, since the day she disappeared with everything I owned almost 3 decades ago. I don't have family. My voice came out flat, brittle. I don't know any Hellers. You need to leave. His face crumbled, a look of deep, crushing failure. Please. He fumbled in his jacket pocket, his hands trembling violently. I have proof. I can show you. I said leave. He pulled out a faded, creased photograph, held it toward me. I didn't want to look, but my eyes went there anyway. 3 women on a sunny porch swing. Summer. A wide, bright blue sky behind them. I knew that photo. I knew it because I was in it. I reached across the counter and took it from him. The edges were soft, worn smooth from being folded and unfolded 1,000 times. There I was, around 35 years old, wearing a faded linen dress I'd forgotten I ever owned. My mother sat in the middle, looking strong and proud. And Tori, my little sister, sat on the other side. She couldn't have been more than 29. This was taken shortly before Mom died. Before everything fell apart. Where did you get this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. From my mom. From Victoria. He pulled out more things. A worn leather wallet. He opened it and showed me an Oregon ID card. Ethan Heller, age 21. Then a folded piece of paper carefully unfolded, like it might disintegrate. A birth certificate. I read the names. Mother, Victoria Vance Heller. Grandmother, Clara Vance. My mother's name. My sister's name. I looked up at his face. Really looked this time. His eyes stopped me cold. Gray-green, the exact shade of our father's eyes. I hadn't thought about those eyes in decades. But there they were, staring at me from this kid's face. And his jawline square, with that slight dimple in the center. The Vance chin. This was Tori's son. My brain started racing, a frantic alarm bell. Where did he come from? Where was Tori? What did she want? Because she always wanted something. This had to be a con. She'd sent her son to get money from me. A story about needing rent or bus fare, or getting back on his feet. She'd coached him on exactly what to say. I put the photo down on the counter. Looked at him straight on. What do you want from me? Money. A place to stay. I kept my voice flat and even. What is Tori's angle this time? He blinked. I don't want anything. I just wanted to meet you. Nobody shows up out of nowhere just to say hello. I've been looking for family for months. A counselor helped me. He stopped, took a ragged breath. I wanted to meet someone who knew my mom. Someone from my family. I studied his face for signs of lying, the practiced expression, the smooth talk. But all I saw was a deep, bone-weary exhaustion and something else. Something that looked exactly like a fragile hope. And it made me angry because hope was a luxury I'd stopped allowing myself 30 years ago. Where is Tori? I demanded. I don't know. You don't know. She kicked me out 2 years ago when I was 19. His voice was barely audible. I haven't seen her since. Tori kicked out her own kid. That tracked. That sounded exactly like something Tori would do. But it could still be part of the con. Send the kid in with a believable story, and then Tori shows up later with the real pitch. I should have told him to leave. Should have handed back his photo and his ID, and told him I didn't want any part of whatever game Tori was playing. But I kept looking at his eyes, Dad's eyes, and that photograph. The 3 of us on the porch swing back when we were still a family. Before Tori destroyed everything. How did you get that photo? I found it in a box when I was 15. Mom kept it at the back of her closet with some other old stuff. I took it. He looked down at the floor. I don't know why. I just wanted something that showed I came from somewhere. He'd stolen a photo from his own mother because he wanted proof he had a family. My chest felt tight, constricted. No, I whispered. I'm not doing this. I'm not letting Tori pull me back into her chaos. Not after all these years. Not after everything she took from me. I can't help you. I slid the photo and the birth certificate back across the counter. I'm sorry you had a rough time, but I don't know you. And I don't know what Tori told you to say, but whatever this is, I'm not interested. His face went blank, totally devoid of expression. He nodded once, picked up the photo, hands still shaking, put it back in his jacket along with his ID. He turned toward the door. I should have let him go. Should have watched him walk out and never thought about him again. But my mouth opened anyway. Wait. He stopped, turned back. Those gray-green eyes met mine again. You said she kicked you out at 19. Where have you been living? He looked down at the worn, cracked wooden floor, then back at me. Shelters, mostly. Streets when there's no room. A counselor helped me find you. The espresso machine rattled softly in the corner. I stood there looking at Tori's son, homeless and desperate, standing in my bakery, asking for nothing but acknowledgement that he existed. Tori had stolen my inheritance and vanished. And now her son was here, looking like he hadn't eaten a real warm meal in days. I had spent decades learning not to trust anyone, built walls high enough that nobody could hurt me again. But my father's eyes stared back at me from this kid's face, and I couldn't seem to make my mouth say the word that would send him back out into the cold rain. I stood there for what felt like a full minute, looking at this kid who just told me he'd been living on the streets. Sit down, I finally said. He blinked. What? There's a table in the corner, near the fireplace. Sit. He walked over slowly, hesitantly, like he thought I might change my mind, set his dirty backpack down carefully, and sat in the wooden chair, resting his hands flat on the table. I went behind the counter and grabbed one of the pre-made sandwiches from the cooler. Roast beef and horseradish. Made it fresh this morning on our seeded rye bread. I poured coffee into a thick ceramic mug, added 2 sugars and cream without asking. That's how I drink it if I hadn't eaten in a while. I put both in front of him. He stared at the sandwich. Didn't touch it. Allergic to roast beef? No, I just. He looked up at me. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Eat it anyway. He picked up the sandwich with both hands, took a bite, then another. He was trying to go slow, trying to look like he wasn't starving, but I could see it in the way his jaw worked, the way his eyes stayed fixed on the food. I sat down across from him with my own cup of coffee and watched him eat half the sandwich before he even touched the coffee. When he finally picked up the mug, he wrapped both hands around it, seeking the warmth. Tell me about Tori, I said. Where is she? He swallowed. Set the sandwich down. I don't know. I truly don't. You said she kicked you out 2 years ago. At 19. You haven't seen her since. I waited. He took another bite of the sandwich, chewed and swallowed. What happened? I asked. He looked down at the table. A lot of things happened. Start somewhere. He was quiet for a long time. Then he started talking. We moved constantly when I was a kid. Every few months sometimes. Different towns, different apartments. I never went to the same school for more than a year. Never made friends because... What was the point? His voice was flat, devoid of self-pity. Mom had boyfriends. They came and went. Some of them were okay. Most of them weren't. They'd move in, things would be calm for a little while, then they'd start fighting, yelling. Sometimes worse than yelling. Then the boyfriend would leave or we'd pack up and leave and we'd be somewhere else. I sipped my coffee, didn't say anything. When I was little, maybe 6 or 7, she'd leave me alone a lot. Go out at night and not come back until the next afternoon. I'd eat cereal for every meal because that's what we had. I was terrified to answer the door. I never knew who might be out there. He picked up the sandwich again but didn't eat it, just held it. By the time I was 13, we were in really bad neighborhoods. Shelters sometimes. Mom was drinking more and she started doing scratch-offs. Gambling. I remember her sitting at the kitchen table with lottery tickets spread out everywhere, scratching them off one after another. She'd win $5 and spend 20 buying more. Always chasing that big win. That sounded exactly like Tori. Always chasing something, always sure the next gamble would be different. She'd tell me it was my fault we didn't have money, that having a kid ruined her life, that if it wasn't for me, she'd be somewhere better. He said it so calmly, like he was discussing the weather. When I was 16, I got a job at a diner. Lied and said I was 18. I gave Mom my paychecks to help with rent and groceries. He looked up at me. She spent it on slot machines and Keno. How do you know? Because I'd come home and she'd be gone. I'd find the casino receipts in the trash, or she'd come back drunk, telling me how she almost won big. How she was so close. I thought about Tori with money, with all that money she stole. And somehow this descent didn't surprise me at all. I barely finished high school. We kept moving, I kept missing too much school. I was always too tired from working. Finally, I just stopped going my senior year. I got my GD later at a shelter. What happened with the boyfriend? The one who made her kick you out? Ethan's jaw tightened. His name was Ray. He moved in when I was 18. He hated me. Said I was a drain. He and Mom would fight about it. She'd defend me sometimes early on. Then she stopped. He took a slow drink of coffee. One night, Ray and I got into it. I was 19 by then. He was drunk. He started shoving me, telling me I needed to get out and get my own place. I shoved him back. He hit me. Ethan lightly touched his cheekbone, like he could still feel the phantom pain. Mom came out and saw what was happening. I thought she'd tell him to leave, but she didn't. No, she told me I shouldn't have started it. Said Ray was right. I was old enough to take care of myself. She said I needed to pack my stuff and go that night. The coffee tasted like ash. I set the cup down. Where did you go? A friend from the diner let me sleep on his floor for a while. Then his mother said I had to leave. After that, shelters. I stayed at different ones around Portland for about a year. Kept trying to find work, but it's hard when you don't have an address, don't have a place to shower, or clean clothes for an interview. He finished the sandwich, crumpled the wrapper slowly in his hands. Then I lost my job. Couldn't keep up with anything. Ended up on the streets. For how long? About 18 months. Slept under freeway overpasses mostly. Behind some businesses. There's a mission on 14th Street that opens at 5 in the morning. I'd go there when I could. He looked at his coffee mug. You learn pretty fast where the police won't bother you. Where it's safe to close your eyes for a few hours. I watched his face. 21 years old, and he was talking about finding safe places to sleep outside like it was completely normal. I tried to find Mom once. About a year ago. Went to the last address I had for her. She wasn't there. A neighbor said she'd been evicted months before. Nobody knew where she went. And you ended up here in Ashford a few months ago. Yeah, there's a decent shelter program here. A bus ticket was cheaper than trying to stay in Portland for the winter. I got into the program, got a bed, and met a counselor there. Marcus Bell. He's been helping me look for work, checking in on me every week, making sure I'm okay. He pulled out his birth certificate again, unfolded it carefully. He helped me trace the family names on this. Found out Clara Vance died a long time ago, but we found you. Found your bakery listed online. Marcus. The name stuck in my head. A counselor who checked in every week. Who helped him search for family. Who gave enough of a damn about this kid to actually follow through. I sat there looking at him. This kid who'd been told his whole life he was a burden. Who'd worked at 16 to support his mother, only to have her choose a drunk, abusive boyfriend over him. Who'd been sleeping in shelters and on streets for 2 years, and still had the guts to go looking for family. And I recognized it. All of it. The way Tori took everything and gave nothing back. The way she made people believe her problems were their fault. The way she burned through money and blamed everyone else. The way she abandoned people the second they stopped being useful. She'd done it to me. Now she'd done it to her own son. She stole from you, didn't she? Ethan said quietly. That's why you reacted the way you did when I said her name. Yes. She stole from me. What did she take? I picked up my coffee mug, set it back down without drinking. Everything, I said. She took everything. He nodded slowly. She's good at that. We sat there in silence. The espresso machine gave a soft hiss. A car horn sounded outside in the rain. We're both her victims, Ethan said. Aren't we? I looked at him. At my father's eyes in his face. At this kid who'd survived Tori's chaos and somehow still had the guts to go looking for family. Yes, I said. I guess we are. He met my eyes, and for the first time since he'd walked into my store, something in his face relaxed. Like he'd been carrying a question for a long time and finally got an answer. Not the answer he probably wanted, but an answer that made sense of his life. The sun had dropped below the buildings. Through the bakery windows, the streetlights were starting to flicker on, casting a silver sheen on the wet pavement. I looked at Ethan sitting across from me, this kid who just told me his whole life story in an hour. You need to hear mine, I said. I stood up, walked to the front door and locked it. Flipped the sign from open to closed. It was only 4:30, but I didn't care. I came back and sat down. Our mother died nearly 3 decades ago. I was 37. Tori was 32. I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, even though it had gone cold. Mom left everything split 50-50 between us. The house and $450,000 in life insurance and savings. Ethan's eyes widened. That's a lot of money. It was. My half would have been $385,000 after all the debts and fees were settled. I looked at my cold coffee. Tori was supposed to co-sign the paperwork to sell the house. We were supposed to split the proceeds and the insurance money. That's what the will said. But she didn't. No. She forged my signature on the documents, sold the house herself, took all the money, and vanished to Seattle. I didn't find out until the bank called, asking why I hadn't come to pick up my check. Turns out there was no check. Tori had already cashed it. She emptied all the accounts. Good God. I filed a police report. They said it was a civil matter. I talked to a lawyer. He said I could sue her, but she'd disappeared. And I didn't have the money for a long court case. So that was it. She was gone. The money was gone. Ethan sat very still. What happened to you? Everything fell apart. I was married then. My husband, Ken, and I had been trying to have a baby for 3 years. I couldn't get pregnant. The doctor said I'd need complex fertility treatments if we wanted kids, but our insurance didn't cover it. We'd been counting on my half of the inheritance, the $385,000 to pay for those treatments. I set the cup down hard on the table. When Tori stole the money, Ken blamed me, said I should have been more careful, should have watched her closer. Like it was my fault. That's not fair. No, but that's what he said. We fought about it for months. Then he told me if we couldn't have kids, he didn't see the point of staying married. So he left. Divorce was final 9 months later. I was 38 years old, broke and alone. I had to move into a tiny studio apartment. Started working double shifts at a diner. Took cleaning jobs on weekends. Every dollar I made went to rent and food and trying not to drown. I looked around the Hearthstone. It took me 20 years to save enough to put a down payment on this place. Opened it when I was 45. That was 20 years ago. And I've worked 70 hours a week ever since just to keep the lights on. Ethan shook his head slowly. She stole your whole life. She stole my chance at having kids. My marriage. My future. $385,000. That would have changed everything. I met his eyes. So yes, when you walked in here today and said her name, every alarm bell in my head went off. Because Tori takes things. That's what she does. I'm not her. I don't know that yet. He nodded. Looked down at his hands. What do you want me to do? Leave. I should have said yes. Should have sent him back to the shelter and forgotten about him. That would have been the smart thing. The safe thing. But I looked at him sitting there with our father's features, and Tori's damage written all over him. And I thought about how she'd stolen from both of us. How she'd thrown both of us away like we were nothing. I'll make you an offer, I said. Work here. Minimum wage. You show up on time. You do the work. You prove you're not like her. Maybe I'll help you get on your feet. His head came up fast. You're serious? I'm serious. But if you steal from me, if you lie to me, if you pull anything that even smells like Tori, you're out. Understood. Understood. You start tomorrow. 5:30 in the morning. I need someone to help with the morning baking prep. He stood up fast, almost knocking the chair over. Thank you. I swear I won't let you down. We'll see. He left that night with a roast beef and horseradish sandwich and a promise to be back before dawn. I watched him walk down the wet street with his backpack, and I wondered if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. The next morning at 5:30 exactly, he knocked on the door. He was already wearing a clean, slightly faded dark green t-shirt, which I assumed was the best he had. For the first 4 weeks I watched him like a hawk. I counted the register at the end of every shift. I checked the inventory of flour and sugar twice a day, waiting for something to go missing. I waited for him to not show up. I waited for the inevitable con. But Ethan came in every single day at 5:30, sometimes 10 minutes early. He did exactly what I asked. He learned how to make the sourdough starter, how to knead the dough, how to clean the massive stand mixers. He scrubbed the floors and the bathroom without being asked. He was quiet, spoke only when necessary, but he was efficient and relentless. When Mrs. Davies, the elderly woman who lived next door, came in, he carried her bag of rolls and her morning paper out to her car, holding the umbrella over her head in the rain. When the bulk flour delivery came late one Tuesday, he didn't complain. He reorganized the entire back storage area to make room for the bags, using the time to sweep and stack. He never asked for extra money, never took a break longer than 10 minutes. He just worked. After a month, I co-signed a lease for a small damp room in a basement apartment 3 blocks away. I told myself I was just being practical. If he had a stable, warm place to sleep, he'd be more reliable during the morning rush. That's all it was. I still didn't trust him. 3 months in, he came to me with an idea while we were prepping a batch of the cranberry orange scones. Eleanor. He rarely used my first name. What is it, Ethan? What if we did delivery? For the older customers who can't easily walk here in the rain or the snow, I could take orders in the morning and drop them off during the quieter afternoons. I looked at him like he was crazy. We don't have a delivery vehicle, Ethan. I have a very old Ford pickup that I am not trusting to start on a daily basis, and you have a bicycle, I assume? Yes, ma'am. My bike. We could just start small. See if anyone wants it. Maybe charge a small $3 fee. Enough to cover the time. Nobody is going to pay for $3 delivery from a neighborhood cafe. Maybe not, but maybe they would. I let him try it. I figured it would fail and he'd drop it. It was a perfect way for him to learn a business lesson. But he found an old desktop computer at the shelter's community room, made small, neat flyers that advertised Hearthstone home delivery, with a hand-drawn picture of a bicycle, and put them up at the local community center and the doctor's office. Within 2 weeks, we had 8 regular delivery customers. Within 2 months, we had 15. He'd load up his sturdy backpack with paper-wrapped loaves of bread, coffee cakes, and bags of prepared sandwiches. He'd ride his bike around the damp streets of Ashford, dropping off cinnamon rolls and rye bread and coffee beans to people who couldn't easily get out. He also started taking decent, well-lit photos of the pastries and sandwiches on his phone and posting them on something called Insta-something. I didn't even know what social media was, but suddenly we had younger customers coming in saying they saw our roast beef and horseradish on the feed. 6 months in, revenue was up 18%. The register consistently had more cash at the end of the day. The deli cooler was selling out of the daily lunch specials by 2 in the afternoon. I gave him a small raise, told him he was doing good work. He looked at me like I'd handed him a gold medal. Really? You think so? Don't make me say it twice. You're efficient, and the customers like you. He smiled. It was the first real unrestrained smile I'd seen from him. It lit up his face. Thank you, Eleanor. I watched him go back to stocking the refrigerator case, and something in my chest loosened a little bit. Just a little. He wasn't Tori. He built things instead of breaking them. He showed up instead of disappearing. He gave effort instead of taking advantage. It had been 6 months. I still checked the register every night. I still counted the inventory, but I checked a little less carefully now. Counted a little less obsessively. Maybe he really was different. The first year came and went. Ethan showed up every single day. He worked every shift I asked him to work. He never stole a dollar. He never lied about being sick when he wasn't. He never did a single thing that reminded me of Tori. On the anniversary of the day he first walked in, I closed the store an hour early. I bought a small, beautiful German chocolate cake from a high-end bakery across town. I lit a single candle. "What is this for?" he asked, looking bewildered. 1 year, I said simply. "You've been working here a full year." He stared at the cake like he'd never seen one before. "I've never had anyone celebrate me working somewhere." "Well, you've earned it." We sat at a small wooden table by the counter and ate the cake. It was rich, dark chocolate, too sweet for my palate, and the coconut frosting stuck to the roof of my mouth. But Ethan ate his entire piece like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. "You're doing good work, Ethan," I said. "I want you to know that. I appreciate your effort." He looked up at me. His gray-green eyes were suddenly wet. That means a lot. Don't get soft on me now. You've still got floors to mop. He laughed. A deep, hearty sound. Yes, ma'am. I watched him clean up the cake plates and get back to work. This kid who'd been sleeping under bridges a year ago, who'd survived Tori's absolute chaos and come out the other side still trying. And I realized something that scared me deeply. I was starting to care about him, not just as a reliable employee but as something else. Something I didn't have words for yet. I pushed the thought away, locked it down, but it stayed there anyway, quiet and persistent, like a perennial seed that had been planted in the hardened soil of my heart whether I wanted it or not. 3 years had passed since that first day. Ethan was 24 now. I was 68, and somewhere along the way the Hearthstone stopped being just mine and became ours. The menu looked nothing like it used to. Ethan had pushed for a full hot breakfast service. He said people walking to work and the nearby college students needed more than pre-made food. So now we made breakfast burritos and savory crepes fresh every morning. They sold out by 8:30 most days. He'd also talked me into catering. Small stuff at first, trays of muffins for office meetings, coffee service for a real estate open house. Then a law firm started ordering lunch 3 times a week. Then a construction company. Then more. We hired 2 part-time employees just to keep up. Lily worked mornings, a bright, cheerful student. Marco worked afternoons, a retired carpenter who loved the routine. Ethan had interviewed them both himself. I worked 50 hours a week now instead of 70. My back thanked me daily. My bank account looked better than it had in 20 years. For the first time since I'd opened this place, I wasn't one bad month away from losing it. I finally felt safe. Ethan had changed too. Not just physically, he'd filled out some. Looked healthier. Slept in a real bed now, ate regular warm meals. But it was more than that. He moved through the bakery like he belonged there. He joked easily with the regulars, knew their names, their grandkids' names, and what they always ordered. When Mr. Peterson came in complaining about an extra 50-cent charge on his receipt, Ethan handled it calmly. He checked the register tape, found the small mistake, refunded his money, and apologized sincerely. Mr. Peterson left happy and embarrassed. I watched him do it and realized something profound. He wasn't an employee anymore. He was my partner. One Tuesday morning, our specialty flour supplier showed up an hour late with only half the rye flour we needed. I would have lost my temper. I was already dialing their number, ready to find someone else, but Ethan walked the delivery guy outside, talked to him quietly for 10 minutes in the pouring rain, and came back in with a promise of a 25% discount on the next 4 deliveries and an assurance it wouldn't happen again. How on earth did you manage that? I asked, putting my phone away. He shrugged, drying his wet hair with a towel. His kid is sick, and he's been driving double shifts to cover the hospital bills. He was stressed and overtired. I just listened. That was Ethan. He listened. He built bridges instead of burning them. He was everything his mother was not. We started having dinner together twice a week. He'd come up to my small 2-bedroom apartment above the bakery after we closed. He'd bring Thai takeout or pizza. We'd sit at my tiny kitchen table and talk. At first, it was strictly business, which suppliers to use, whether we should expand the sandwich menu, how to handle difficult customers. Then one night he asked about my ex-husband, Ken. Do you ever think about him? Wonder what happened to him? I set my fork down slowly. No. Not in a long, long time. Did you love him? I thought I did. Then he left when things got hard, and I realized love isn't supposed to work that way. It's supposed to be reliable. Ethan was quiet for a moment, picking at the noodle container. My mom used to say she loved me. Then she'd tell me I ruined her life in the same breath. That wasn't love. That was Tori being Tori. Yes, I agreed. I used to think something was wrong with me. Like if I'd been different, better, she would have wanted to keep me. I looked at him across the table. Nothing was wrong with you, Ethan. Everything was wrong with her. She was a hurricane. He nodded. Didn't say anything else, but something in his face relaxed, like a weight had been lifted just by having his truth confirmed by someone else. We talked about Tori sometimes. Not often, but when we did, it helped. Like lancing a wound so it could finally heal clean. We both carried her damage for so long, him for 21 years, me for decades. Sharing the burden somehow made it lighter. The next week he mentioned he'd never had a birthday party growing up. Mom forgot most years or she'd remember, but we didn't have money for a cake. One year she promised we'd celebrate, and then she didn't come home for 3 days. So I started making sure we acknowledged his birthday every year. Simple celebrations, a cake and an hour off to sit together and mark the day. The first time I did it, he cried. Tried to hide it, but I saw the tears tracing paths through the flour dust on his cheeks. The second year he just smiled, said it meant more than I knew. By year 3, the business was doing well enough that we started talking seriously about expansion, a second location somewhere across town in one of the growing, newer neighborhoods. I never thought that big before. Never let myself want more than survival. But Ethan pulled up demographics on his laptop, showed me foot traffic patterns, and talked about underserved areas, making it sound entirely possible. We could do this, he said, his green eyes shining with conviction. We could really do this. You mean I could go into massive debt and lose everything if it fails? I asked, the old fear rising instantly. Or, he countered, you could trust that we've built something good here and we can build it again somewhere else. We are better managers now. We are smarter. I looked at him, 24 years old, and talking about business expansion like he'd been doing it his whole life. He was taking online business courses at night, reading books about inventory management and profit margins. He'd come so far from the scared, hungry kid who'd walked in 5 years ago. Okay, I said, pushing the fear down. Let's start saving. Every nickel and dime we can spare. We put aside $1,200 a month, sometimes $1,500 when we had a particularly good catering month. A separate bank account just for the second location. Ethan tracked every dollar in a spreadsheet. He showed me the numbers growing slowly but surely. It felt real. Our routine solidified. I made the morning coffee. Ethan handled all the opening duties, unlocking the door, turning on the lights, checking that everything was ready for the first customer. We split the register duties. He always locked up at night, checking the security, making sure everything was secure. We didn't talk about it, it just happened. One night I was upstairs after close, sitting in my apartment with a cup of chamomile tea. I thought about Ethan downstairs locking up, about how he'd been doing it for years now, about how I'd stopped checking behind him, about how I trusted him implicitly with my keys, my register, my entire business, about how I loved him. Not like an employee, not even like a nephew, like a son. The son Ken and I had tried and failed so desperately to have. The thought terrified me because love meant risk. It meant opening yourself up to loss. It meant caring about someone enough that it could destroy you if they left. But it was too late. I already loved him. Had loved him for a while. Probably just hadn't let myself admit it. Year 4 passed. Then year 5 arrived. Ethan turned 26. I turned 69. We had $65,000 saved. 3 years of putting money aside month after month. We had signed a lease for a beautiful space across town. Construction was underway. A summer opening was planned. It was November again. 5 years to the day since Ethan had first walked through my door. We were doing inventory together, counting large bags of sugar in the back storage room, when he started laughing. What? I asked. Remember the first day I came in here? I stood by the beverage bar for like 10 minutes, trying to work up the courage to talk to you. I remember, I said, smiling slightly despite myself. I thought you were going to steal a scone. I thought you were going to call the police on me. He grinned. I was terrified. So was I. Of you. Of what it would mean if I let you stay. I put down my clipboard. I'd spent so long not trusting anyone, not letting anyone in. And then there you were, standing right in my doorway asking for a chance. I'm glad you gave me one. Me too. He went back to counting the bags of flour. I watched him work, this young man who'd become family without either of us planning it, who'd taken my broken down little bakery and helped turn it into something real, who'd taken my broken down heart and helped it work again. The door chimed loudly, shattering the quiet. We both looked up. A woman stood in the doorway, thin. Her skin was a sickly gray color, and she moved slowly, shuffling like every step caused pain. She was wearing clothes that looked like they came straight from a church donation bin. I recognized her instantly. Tori. My blood turned to ice. My hand tightened on the clipboard until the metal edge cut into my palm. She'd aged badly. Her face was gaunt, her skin slack and gray like old parchment. She moved into the store slowly, one hand on the doorframe for support. The clothes hung off her frame, a coat 2 sizes too big, threadbare pants. She carried a manila envelope clutched against her chest. She looked sick. She looked desperate. I didn't care. "Get out," I said. My voice was low, flat, and hard. Tori stopped dead. Her mouth open, closed. "Eleanor, please. I need to talk to you." I said, "Get out." My voice was colder than the rain outside. "You are not welcome here." Tori took another painful step inside. "Just let me explain, Dash." "Mom." Ethan's voice came from the back room. I heard the distinct thud of a bag of flour hitting the floor. Then he was there, standing next to me, staring at the woman in the doorway. His mother. The woman who'd kicked him out at 19 and left him to sleep under bridges for 18 months. Tori's face crumpled. "Ethan." "Oh God, Ethan." He didn't move. Just stood there, frozen. His face had gone pale, the color draining away instantly. "You need to leave," I said to Tori. "Right now, before I call the police. Please." Tori's voice cracked, sounding like splintering wood. "I know you don't want to see me. I know what I did, but I need to talk to you. Both of you. Please. You have 10 seconds. I pulled my phone from my apron pocket. "Then I'm calling the Ashford police and having you arrested for trespassing. I'm dying." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy, silencing the hum of the bakery. Ethan made a sound, something between a gasp and a whimper. Tori pulled papers from the manila envelope. Her hand shook so badly the papers rattled like dry leaves. "I'm dying. I have medical records, hospital reports, everything. Please just look at them." She held the papers out toward me. I didn't take them. "I don't care if you're dying. I don't care if you're sick. You stole $385,000 from me. You destroyed my life, and you threw your own son away like garbage." My hand was steady on the phone. "Leave. Now. Joan. Eleanor, please." Tears ran down Tori's gaunt cheeks, tracking through the dirt. "I know I don't deserve help. I know what I am, but I'm your sister. I'm Ethan's mother. And I'm dying." She took another shaky step forward, set the papers on the counter between us. I could clearly see the letterhead, Pacific Northwest Medical Center. I could see the words liver disease and urgent from where I stood. "I have advanced liver failure. My liver is shutting down." Tori's voice shook uncontrollably. "I need a transplant or I won't survive the next 3 months." Ethan reached for the papers, picked them up, and started reading instantly. "Don't," I said to him sharply. But he kept reading. His hands trembled, but his eyes were fixed on the documents. Tori kept talking, pleading. "The transplant procedure and hospital stay cost $110,000. The hospital needs $55,000 up front before they'll even schedule the evaluation. I don't have insurance. I don't have savings. I don't have anyone else." She looked desperately between us. "You're the only family I have left. You made that choice," I said, my voice rising. "You chose to steal from me. You chose to abandon your son. You chose every single thing that led you here. I know. So why should we care?" Tori's face twisted in pain. More tears. "Because I don't want to die. Because I'm 57 years old, and I made terrible choices, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And I know saying it doesn't fix anything, but I'm begging you. Please." Ethan set the papers down gently. "These look real, Eleanor." "Of course they look real," I said, turning my fury on him. "Tori forged documents before. She's good at making things look legitimate. She stole $385,000 from me using fake paperwork. You think she can't fake medical records?" Tori shook her head violently. "I'm not lying. Call the hospital. Talk to my doctor. Dr. Reynolds. He's listed right there on the papers. Call him. Verify everything. I'm not lying about this." I looked at the documents on the counter. Diagnosis reports, blood test results, surgery estimates, all with official-looking headers and signatures. Could be real. It could also be the best con Tori had ever pulled. "How much do you need?" Ethan's voice was quiet, almost defeated. "No." I spun toward him. "We are absolutely not doing this. She's my mother. She kicked you out. She let you starve. She chose a drunk, abusive man over you. I know. Ethan's face was pale, but his jaw was set with a terrible resolve. But she's still my mother. And if she's really dying, what does that make us if we say no? What does that choice do to us? Smart, I snapped. It makes us smart because she's done this before, Ethan. Not the dying part, but the begging part. The part where she needs something and suddenly she's sorry, and she'll change, and it will be different this time. I could hear my voice cracking with decades of stored pain. It's never different. She takes what she wants and she leaves. Tori made a choking sound. Please. I know I was a terrible mother. I know I failed you, Ethan, every single day. But I don't want to die. I'm scared. I'm alone. And you're the only people in the world who might care if I live or die. We don't, I said, the lie tasting like rust in my mouth. We don't. Ethan's voice was sharp now. I looked at him, saw the conflict in his face, the agony. This woman had hurt him his entire childhood, had told him he ruined her life, had thrown him out with nothing, and he still wanted to help her. Because he was good. Because he wasn't Tori. But I couldn't let him do this. She'll take the money and disappear, I said. That's what she does. She takes and she runs and she leaves wreckage behind. What if she doesn't? Ethan asked, his eyes pleading. What if she's really dying, and we're the only ones who can save her? Can you live with that? Then she faces the consequences of her choices. I won't let her destroy you again. It's not your decision. The words hit me like a physical slap. He was right. He was 26 years old. I wasn't his legal mother, no matter how much I felt like it. I couldn't tell him what to do, but I could try to protect him. Tori sobbed, her body racked with pain. Please. I'll pay you back. I'll do whatever you want. Just please give me a chance to live. Get out. I picked up the papers and shoved them toward her. Take your papers and your sorry story, and get out of my bakery. Eleanor, stop. Ethan put his hand on my arm, his grip surprisingly firm. I said, get out. Tori took the papers. Her hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped them on the floor. She looked at Ethan, waited for him to speak, to contradict me, to save her. He stayed silent. She backed toward the door, still crying, still clutching the manila envelope against her chest like a shield. I'm staying at the shelter downtown, she whispered. The community house. If you change your mind, please. I don't have much time. She left. The door closed behind her, the small bell jingling mournfully. Ethan and I stood there in the sudden, terrible silence. He was breathing hard. His chest rose and fell rapidly. We need to talk about this, he said. No, we don't. Yes, we do. She's lying. She's always lying. That's what Tori does. What if she's not? I looked at him, at this young man I loved like a son, who'd survived Tori's damage and built a life anyway, who'd worked so hard to become someone good. And I saw her pulling him back in. I saw the hook setting. I saw him wanting, desperately wanting to believe she'd changed, wanting to believe she deserved mercy. She'll destroy us, I said, my voice low and desperate. Just like she destroyed everything else. Or we save her life, he countered. At what cost? Ethan didn't answer. He just stood there, pale and shaking, staring at the door where his mother had just vanished. And I felt the terror rise up in my throat because I knew that look. I knew what it meant. He wanted to help her. And I had no idea how to stop him. That night, we closed the bakery an hour early, locked the door and went upstairs to my apartment. Ethan sat at my tiny kitchen table with his head in his hands. I made coffee, neither of us wanted it, but it was routine. She's still my mother, he said. What if she's really dying? What if we could save her and we just let her die? She forged documents to steal $385,000 from me once before, I said, setting the coffee mug in front of him. These medical papers could be fake too. This is what she does. But what if they're not fake? Then she's finally experiencing consequences. We argued for hours. Ethan said we had $65,000 saved. We could delay the second store. Save a life. Wasn't that worth it? I reminded him what Tori had done. She threw you on the street at 19. She let you sleep under bridges. She took your paychecks and spent them gambling. She doesn't deserve our mercy. But what if she's changed? What if she's finally sorry? I looked at him across the table. Ethan, you want a mother. You've always wanted a mother. But she's not that person. She's never been that person. Don't let her con you again. He didn't answer. He just sat there staring at his untouched coffee. Over the next week, Ethan brought it up every morning before we opened. During inventory, while we were restocking shelves. He couldn't let it go. I spent my evenings researching online. I found stories of medical fraud people who faked advanced organ failure diagnoses to get money from family, who forged hospital records, who preyed on guilt and family obligation. I showed Ethan the articles. This is what con artists do. Tori has done this her whole life. This is her playbook. I know. Do you? I pressed. Because you keep bringing it up like there's another option here. There is another option. We help her. And when she takes the $55,000 and disappears, when we find out the medical records were fake, and she's living in some other city spending our savings, what then? What happens to the second store we worked 5 years to build? Ethan's jaw tightened. You're so sure she's lying. I'm sure she's Tori. That's enough. On the 8th day, Ethan came to me before we opened. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. The conflict was wearing him down. Okay, he said, his voice raw. We don't give her the money. You're right. I wish things were different. I wish I had a mother. Relief flooded through me, so intense it was almost painful. They're not different, Ethan, I said gently. She's not different. You are. I know. That afternoon, Tori came back to the bakery. She didn't come in. She just stood outside looking through the window. I saw her before she saw me. I wiped my hands on my apron, took a deep breath, and went outside to the parking lot. The rain had paused, leaving the air heavy and cold. We are not giving you anything, I said, standing between her and the glass door. I don't know if you're dying or lying, but I know you destroyed us both, and you will not destroy us again. Leave Ashford. And don't come back. Tori's face crumpled. Please, Eleanor, I'm begging you. Just a little. Even $10,000. Enough for the first appointment. The answer is no. You're murderers, both of you. Her voice rose shrill and desperate, cracking with pain. Ethan will regret this his whole life. You'll regret this. Ethan had come outside and stood right beside me, silent. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He was supporting me now. Tori looked at him, waited for him to speak, to contradict me, to save her, to show his allegiance to her blood. He stayed silent. She screamed at us, called us heartless, called us monsters, said we'd have to live with killing her. Then she turned, stumbled slightly, and walked away. She got into a faded blue sedan I didn't recognize, cheap taxi, probably, and was driven away. Ethan and I went back inside. We didn't talk about it. We just went back to work. 3 months passed. Winter turned to the early, muddy signs of spring. We finished construction on the second store. Hired more employees. Set an opening date. The business kept us frantically busy. We didn't talk about Tori. I assumed she'd moved on. Found some other family member to con. Then one cold Thursday morning in late February, Marcus Bell walked into the bakery. Ethan's counselor. I recognized him immediately, a kind, earnest man in his early 50s. He looked somber. He saw Ethan wiping down the counter and walked directly over. Marcus, Ethan said, his face lighting up with his usual warmth. What's wrong? You look worried. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I wanted you to hear it from me. Marcus pulled an envelope from his briefcase. Victoria Heller passed away 2 weeks ago, he said quietly. A massive cardiac event at a shelter in Portland. The world tilted again. Ethan's face went white, instantly draining all the color, leaving him looking like the ghost of the boy who first walked in 5 years ago. He took the envelope, opened it, and stared at the paper inside. A death certificate. The hospital tried to get her into emergency care, Marcus said gently. But without the upfront $55,000 payment for the evaluation, they kept delaying the transplant scheduling. By the time they admitted her as an emergency cardiac case, it was too late. Her liver had been failing her heart. Marcus left shortly after that, said he was sorry again, and left us standing in the middle of the warm bakery with a cold piece of paper. The final, terrible, undeniable proof. Ethan didn't speak for days. He came to work. He stocked shelves. He worked the register. He talked to customers. But his eyes were somewhere else. He moved like a sleepwalker. A week after Marcus's visit, I was closing up. Ethan was supposed to leave an hour earlier, but he was still there, sitting at a table near the fireplace in the dark. I sat down across from him. "We killed her," he said. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. "We had the money. We had $65,000 saved. And we let her die." "No, Ethan. You listen to me. She killed herself. She spent 5 decades making choices. Stealing, gambling, drinking, abandoning people. She built this ending brick by brick, year after year. But we could have saved her. We had the money. We chose our future over trusting someone who spent decades proving she couldn't be trusted. She forged documents once before. We made the choice we could live with based on who she showed us she was." I kept my voice steady, firm. "That's not murder. That's survival. It's self-preservation." "It doesn't feel like survival," he whispered, staring into the dark corner. "It feels like I let my mother die alone." "You didn't let her die. You refused to be destroyed by her one more time. There's a difference. A huge difference." He put his head down on the table, burying his face in his arms. His shoulders shook violently. I reached across the table and put my hand on his shoulder. It was the first time I had initiated a touch with him. I didn't say anything else. I just sat there with him while he cried for the mother he never really had. Mourning the loss of the possibility he had desperately clung to, the possibility that she could have changed. The new store opened 2 weeks later. It was beautiful. Customers came. Sales were immediately good. Ethan managed it, just like we had planned, but the joy was muted. We both carried Tori's death like a heavy, silent weight. 2 months passed. April arrived. One quiet Sunday, we sat in the original bakery after closing, 2 cups of coffee going cold on the table between us. "I think I understand now," Ethan said, looking up, his eyes still carrying a shadow but clearer than they had been. "If we had given her the money and she had run off with it, if it had been another scam, I would have hated myself for being fooled again." He took a slow, deep breath. "Either way, I was going to carry something heavy. The guilt of letting her die, or the shame of being conned again. It was a choice between 2 kinds of pain." I nodded. "We made a choice with the information we had. She gave us a lifetime of reasons not to trust her. One medical document, even a real one, didn't erase 30 years of history. We chose the pain of regret over the pain of betrayal." "Do you think she was really sorry at the end?" he asked. I thought about it, looking at the faded spot where she had stood. Maybe. Or maybe she was just terribly, terribly scared. We'll never know. "But Ethan," I continued softly, "she had all those years to be sorry. To find you. To apologize. To change. She only showed up when she needed $55,000 to save her own life. That tells you everything you need to know about her priorities." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm glad I have you, Eleanor. I'm glad I have you too, son." We sat there as the light faded outside. 2 people who'd found each other by accident, who'd built something real out of Tori's wreckage. The love of a chosen family, stronger than the bond of blood. The next morning, I went to the new bakery. Ethan was already there, organizing the display inventory. I watched him help a young mother find the right kind of oat milk. Watched him joke with an elderly man buying his morning Seattle Times. Watched him move through the space with confidence, kindness, and genuine warmth. He'd become a good man despite Tori because he'd chosen to be different. Victoria made her choices every single day for 6 decades. She stole. She abandoned. She burned every bridge. In the end, she died alone because that's the life she built. We didn't kill her. We just refused to be destroyed by her one more time. The new store is open now. Ethan manages it completely. We're moving forward with our lives. With our business. With the family we chose to build together. And Tori's ghost can't follow us there. So that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Would you have risked the $65,000? The future you worked 5 years to build to help a dying family member who stole everything from you and abandoned her own son? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.